Okay. Can everyone see the beautiful 5 and 25 clock?
Looks good.
Outstanding.
Yep.
Okay. My name is Tom Ruich. The guy in the dark blue is Dean Isaacs, and this is a 5 and 25 training called Metrics That Matter, 5 things to measure in your marketing and sales. And by 5 and 25, we mean we're going to deliver 5 actionable tips. We might even squeeze in a bonus, all in 25 minutes. After the 25 minutes, we will, Dean and I will introduce ourselves in a little more detail. We'll get to that after the 25 minutes, and we'll have time for Q&A after that as well. So stick around beyond the 25, but the content is all going to be packed into 25 minutes. I have 3 after the hour, so let's promise that we'll get that all in by 28 after the hour. For any of you who had important appointments at 25 after the hour, I apologize, but we'll try to make it work. So let's start right in, Dean, with number 1, which is conversion rate. So the conversion rate is prospects converted to customers divided by prospects added to the pipeline times 100. Now, I want to clarify this, because you also can think of conversion rate not just in terms of customer conversion, but you can think of it in terms of lead conversion. So let's say you have a campaign that you're doing with very cold leads, a purchase list, or just a targeted search on social media or something like that. And what you're measuring is what percentage of those are converting to warm prospects, people who have raised their hand for a webinar or something like that. But whatever the case it is, it's the number converted over the number who you started with times 100 to make it a percentage and a consumable number. So why do we care, Dean? Why are we so worried about conversion rate?
Well, that's a great question. I think we care because we want to know what's working, right, and what's not. And to your point, this is the equation for sales conversions, right? Lead to customer. But again, there's lots of transactions along the way that we want to measure conversions, but ultimately we want to know what's working and how well it's working, and then ultimately what can we do to make informed decisions to do more of that and less of the stuff that isn't, right? So it's really about being informed. We tend to go through the whole sales cycle, whole marketing cycle, and we sort of end up with what we ever end up with. This is the place to start measuring your success rate.
Right. And one of the things for any of you who are investing in, for example, search marketing or paid advertising campaigns, you'll often have vendors saying to you, oh, well, we got a gazillion impressions. We had so many people look at this, or we got 1,000 people to click on something. And what you really want to do is think about it from the perspective of by asking, to what end? They clicked for what? Well, they clicked because I want them to become a customer, or they clicked because I want them to sign up for my training session. And so doing this very simple equation of, how many of the people that I sent the thing to or that I got as clickers actually convert to and take action to do the thing I wanted them to do, buy, sign up, whatever it is. That's when you begin to really measure the effectiveness of particular campaigns. And it really is amazing how many people out there are celebrating vanity metrics. I got so many likes, I got so many impressions, I got so many engagements, so on and so forth, when those vanity metrics mean nothing when you begin to actually put them through the lens of a conversion. And we go further still to number 2. Let's see here. Number 2, the cost per prospect. So you may have an awesome conversion rate. You may have, put 1,000 leads into whatever the funnel is and turned 200 of them into really warm prospects. They took a call, or they signed up for the training, or whatever the case may be. But what was the cost to accomplish that? And that's something that a lot of businesses fail to look at. And when you begin to look at it, well, something that looks like a great conversion rate turns out not necessarily to be a great business move. So Dean, walk us through this equation, and let's talk about what that means.
Yeah, so the cost per prospect, as you described, I think sometimes what happens is we lump all of our activity into one bucket, and we measure this big chunk of activities and then the outcomes, right? And we don't have any way to define specifically what activities, what channels, what lead gen strategies are actually converting. So especially on this one, and also the conversion rate too, but for the cost per prospect, it's the total cost of that marketing activity divided by the number of prospects that you produce. I would say don't look at all your marketing budget and all your marketing activities. Break this down into particular activities, channels, campaigns, because that's really the only way you're going to get meaningful information. Because you could say, well, I spent $5,000 this year on all my marketing stuff and it produced X number of leads. That's not really an actionable number to work from. So think of it in terms of campaign or channel or outreach strategy to really give
and I completely agree with Dean that if you can break it down to the particular activity. So I ran a Facebook advertising campaign. I can measure my costs for that campaign, and I can tell you how many prospects, how many people signed up for whatever it is I was pushing them to. Now I have a cost per prospect. The overall, your total business or marketing cost divided by the total number of prospects you threw into your CRM is not a very actionable stat, as Dean noted. It is something that year over year you can measure and look at. So, if this year or in 2020 I was spending X dollars per prospect, and in 2021 I'm spending 20% more and my revenue hasn't gone up, well, then there are things to look at. But the challenge with this one is that business wide, what are my total marketing costs for the business? That's an easier number to collect. Breaking down marketing costs, especially when personnel costs are part of it, can get tricky at the campaign level. But Dean's absolutely right. You want to try to do it because you want to know which activities are profitable and which activities are not. And let's take it to the next one, because it's all good and well to know how much you paid to get somebody to that training or that prospect event or whatever it might be, that strategy call. But here's the real number that matters. What was your cost per sale? So what we're talking about here, customer acquisition cost, is total marketing and sales costs divided by the number of sales. This is the bigger one. And something just came to mind on the prior slide, Tom. Also, the cost per prospect is define what a prospect is in your business. You ask a marketer, what is a lead or a qualified lead? And you ask a seller, what is a qualified lead? Often that's a very different description. Right? Where the person's at on the buyer's journey, are they ready to buy? All of those things. So if you use the term prospect or lead or whatever you want to describe it as, opportunity, get really clear on what that means, right? Because you're going to generate leads that aren't qualified. Do they count, right? Or are they just expense in your cost per prospect? And so when you get to this concept of cost per sale,
then the conversation follows very naturally. You've defined what an ideal or a qualified lead is, and then you can see how many of those qualified leads convert versus all the garbage in the system. It's going to be a much lower number, right? And as a seller, when you've got your selling hat on, you want to spend time on leads that have the highest likelihood of buying and not the 90% of the other noise in the funnel. So getting clear on that really makes a big difference. And ultimately, your conversion rate will be higher because you're spending the right time on the right activities.
Yeah, and different people define, where that line between a cold lead and an engaged prospect is. Dean and I have not compared notes on this, and I'm sure we define it differently. But so I have a lot of people who signed up for my mailing list. I do not define everybody on my mailing list as a prospect. But if I have a prospecting event, a webinar, a training, that goes a step beyond just joining my list, I then think of those as prospects because there's follow-up and a move to sales. I'm hemming and hawing a little bit because it actually changes. And I'm going to throw it to Dean. How do you define it? Is a prospect somebody only if they get to a sales call or a strategy call?
Yeah, I think in terms of general buckets: lead, prospect, opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So a lead is a person, right, that has the characteristics of the ideal client I want to work with. They're a lead. I may not have ever spoken to them. Maybe I bought a lead or a lead list, or they signed up for something. I don't know them. I haven't had a conversation with them, but they meet that characteristic. To me, that's a lead, something I can nurture, someone I can nurture over time. Once I've had some kind of interaction with them and they've communicated some level of interest, and they have the ability to buy, and I have the ability to deliver value, then they're a prospect. Mm-hmm. And then the next step is we talk about something tangible, some problem they want to solve that I can help with. Then they're an opportunity. It's a defined opportunity. We can scope and price and all that stuff. So I think in terms of those steps, and typically what happens is when they're still in the lead stage, it's more of a marketing relationship. When they make that transition to a prospect stage, it's more of a sales conversation, and then they move on through there as well. So that's sort of how I generally categorize.
I like it. I like that. I like that definition. And again, while we're talking about total marketing and sales cost and number of sales, doing this company-wide across all activities, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's hard to turn that into actionable data. To the extent that you can do this as an activity by activity analysis, you're going to be better off. Yeah. Sometimes easier said than done, but worth the try.
It is. One of the bullet points we actually removed from the slides was this concept of attribution, which basically means what marketing activity led to which sale, right? Connecting those dots. So you can say, all right, 60% of my sales came from this lead source, this campaign, this activity. That's attribution. I think that's another component of analyzing your activities, your spend, your effort, and all those things. And that can be tough too, right? Because do you attribute a lead to the webinar they showed up for? Or was it the sales conversation you had later, or the referral that somebody, it's multi-point touches, right? So I think you've got to be kind of cautious about what you attribute what to, but you've got to track that stuff for sure.
Yep, absolutely. Great point. Okay, number 4. This one's a biggie. So, a story. So when I was a kid, I was in love with Sports Illustrated. I made murals on the wall of my basement with Sports Illustrated covers, and really brilliant photography. And actually back in the 50s, it used to be oil portraits. It used to be literally oil illustrations in Sports Illustrated. That predates me. But my father-in-law was an artist who actually worked for the studio in New York that did the illustrations. And back in the day, when you subscribed to Sports Illustrated, if you were a new subscriber, they would give you a very low entry point, a discounted subscription, plus they would send you a football phone. They would send you this phone that was a big football that would sit on your table. And I don't know the math, but in marketing terms, what they were doing was loss leading. The football phone and that offer was a loss lead, the loss leader. They were spending more to get that first subscription than they were earning in year one revenue. And the reason that they were willing to do that is that they understood that once they got you in the door, a significant percentage of subscribers would renew. They would renew at a higher price. They would buy books. They would buy, whatever. And so what they were doing was calculating the initial customer acquisition cost. I'm spending so much money mailing this person. I'm throwing in a phone. There are these personnel costs. All of that goes into the number of customers we acquire as a result of the football phone campaign. My customer acquisition cost is higher than the initial year one transaction per customer, the average transaction per customer. However, over their lifetime, annual revenue per customer is going to be higher. And if you multiply that by the number of years that they're subscribed, I was subscribed through, from age 8 until 18, probably 10 years. And I'm sure there are lots of people out there who have been subscribed to Sports Illustrated for who knows how many years. And oh, by the way, the reason that they fly a bunch of models all over the world and spend huge dollars is because they are improving customer retention, increasing the average customer lifespan, because people, men will be men. They keep subscribing to Sports Illustrated because that ensures they'll get the swimsuit issue delivered straight to their mailbox, right?
That's right.
So the average annual revenue of a customer times the average customer lifespan. There are much more complex calculations for lifetime value. But if you just work this calculation in your mind, it's not what they spend the first time, it's over the life of their time with me. What are they spending? Are they upselling into, books? Are they going to a higher subscription level? Am I raising prices on, to keep up with inflation? So what can I expect? And knowing that number is so critical, because it can completely alter the way that you perceive your marketing investment. So many people say, I'm not willing to spend X because my revenue from the initial transaction is going to be X minus N.
Yep.
Well, if you look at it as, no, you're going to spend X, and then your cost to renew them is going to be 1/10 of X year over year, and yet your average lifetime value is going to be 10X, 20X, 30X. now you're on to something. Go on, Dan.
This is a huge one. And I think this gives you, if you're going to take any of these, and we've got, I think, one more to go. If you're going to take any of these, this is the one to work on. And here's why. If you take the equation we've got, average annual revenue, you can even break that into two pieces: average deal size and the number of times they buy. Right? So that's two things you can work on, multiplied by the number of time, the length of time they're with you. That gives you three tangible things you can do in your business to grow your revenue with your existing customer base. Without selling any more logos, any more business, bringing any more customers across the threshold. You can double your revenue potentially by focusing on this statistic alone. How do you increase your average deal size? Can you add more stuff to your offer? Can you partner up with someone and bring more value? Right? There's lots of ways to increase the deal size. Can you increase the frequency they purchase? Is there a ascension model, a follow-on offer? You've got this phased approach, right? That's another way to move the dial. And then the third one in this particular example is how do you keep them around longer? How do you keep them loving you for longer? That's one thing that alone will increase the revenue in your business long-term and increase the value of your business.
Yeah, I think Dean would agree with me when I say that when I meet prospects or onboard new clients, the first thing that I hear over and over and over and over again is, I want new leads. I want new customers. I need more leads. I need more customers. And here's the thing. The cost of going and finding leads, engaging them, converting them to prospects, converting prospects to customers, and having that initial transaction is significantly higher. Some data say 7x higher than the cost of extracting the same dollars from an existing client. I was in Baltimore with a guy named Vance Morris, who is probably as good a systems guy as I know. He knows his numbers, he knows how to grow his business, and he worked through a model that said, if you simply increase your prices by 10% year over year, you're going to be increasing overall revenue, and that assumes a 90% customer retention rate or some number like that. You're going to increase your revenue dramatically more than if you increase your new customer numbers by 30%, 40%, 50%, because what you're doing, well, I won't run you through all the math, but here is the idea for everybody. Figure out lifetime value of a customer and focus on what Dean was talking about. Focus on how to maximize the revenue per customer. That can happen by increasing prices. That can happen by upselling them into a higher tier. That can happen by cross-selling them into related products. Increase the revenue per customer and increase, number 5, minimize your churn rate and increase your retention rate.
Yeah.
If you can reduce your churn rate from 10% to 5%, that's way better than increasing your sales growth by 5%.
Yeah. The other beauty of this is you don't have to grow your business to grow your revenue. You don't have to add more staff. You don't have to work more hours. You're servicing the same client base and ultimately generating more revenue. Now, that you can only grow that so far and so long. You can't sustain long-term on a finite number of clients. You have to bring in new blood over time.
Yeah.
Right? That being said, you're undervaluing the relationship you have with your existing client base. Guaranteed. If you haven't upped your prices in the last 12 months, you're already 6 months behind.
Yep. I do
And
not know a single business owner who focuses as much attention as they should on maximizing lifetime value of customers and focusing on their existing customers. And when I say that, I'm looking in the mirror. I'm guilty. Dean, you're guilty. Every business owner is guilty of this, but most business owners are guilty of not even thinking about it.
Yeah.
And
so,
go ahead, Dean.
I was just saying, think about the ideal life cycle of a customer of yours. If you could bring them in at a certain place and over time add more value, do more things, help them grow, do the things what would that look like? Just map that journey out. And then there are inflection points along the way where you can insert more value. You can increase your prices. You can offer more things. You can get them to where they want to be. But if you don't think about that journey, then the upsell is random. It's like, oh, maybe I'll try this and maybe I'll try that. But if you already know what that journey looks like, you can precondition your prospects and your clients to that journey. They know what's next, and the likelihood of them buying goes up exponentially.
Yep. And by the way, some people, when they think about lifetime value, at least for the purpose of calculating how much am I willing to spend to get a new customer, they factor in referrals. And I don't include referral revenue or some rewarding of some percentage of the revenue as a piece that I attribute to a given customer or the overall revenue of a customer. But when we're talking about this whole notion of the cost and the effort and what goes into getting new customers versus maximizing lifetime value of existing customer, you want to consider the fact that one of the best, or really the best way to begin to fill in behind and begin to fill the new customer funnel is by leveraging your existing clientele with a referral program. The happy customers get referrals. If you do not have a referral program, you need one. And by the way, Dean, I'm not positive that that's on our list of 5 and 25 topics, but 5 tips to build a massively successful referral program. We need to do that one soon. Yeah, because it's so darn important. All right, we're a little long, and I hate breaking the 25-minute process or promise. So I'm going to give our bonus thing. Bottom line, profit. That's the bottom line. I'm so tired. So tired of business people who are chirping about their the number of likes they've got, or the number of followers they have, or their open rates going through the roof, and none of it is, you can't take any of it to the bank. All of this stuff that we're talking about are really leading indicators to the bottom line, profit. And so, you know, Ben Settle, who is one of the great email marketers on the planet, he just built, I think I talked about this at the last 5 and 25. He recently built an email marketing platform with a partner of his named Troy Broussard. And when they built the thing, Ben didn't even want to allow the open rates as a statistic. he didn't even want to allow people to know open rates. And he operates from the mentality of, I do campaigns and I measure whether they're profitable or not. And that's all that I care about. And it's not a bad way to approach your business. You know, in the end, it's all about the bottom line. So we're half past the hour. Let's Dean, take a moment to introduce yourself, what you do, share anything you want to share with the audience, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So my business is Vantage Group, and B2B professionals come to us to help them really identify and remove the revenue roadblocks in their business. Many B2B service providers hit this ceiling. Either they cannot do any more work, right? They're maxed out, maxed out their time, their effort, their energy, and they've just plateaued. And our job is to help them figure out how to get through that ceiling. So we really work across the whole revenue cycle with our clients: marketing, sales, and lifetime value, client retention as well. So they can maximize their profits and returns. So, there's a lot of confusion around marketing. There's a lot of confusion about selling and growing businesses. And we help eliminate all of that with a strategy that's worked for hundreds of businesses over the last 2 decades. So that's what we do.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm Tom Ruich. I'm in St. Louis. I'm the CEO of Story Power Marketing, CEO and founder of Story Power Marketing, and coaches, consultants, professional service providers, anyone who packages expertise for sale to serve their clients, hire me to transform their creative content, to power up their creative content and storytelling, because most of them are dishing out the same old boring blah 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 information only content, and then prospects are tuning out and turning off, and then those experts feel frustrated and stuck. So I teach them how to transform their content from boring to brilliant, how to make the marketing process, how to turn it from frustrating to fun and fulfilling. And then ultimately, back to the bonus tip, how to transform the bottom line from pitiful to profitable. My bottom line is that if you can create the kind of content that is entertaining, not just blah, 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 informative, is entertaining, captivating, and story powered, you'll be the one in your niche to stand out so that prospects choose to hire you. And I think everybody on this call is on my mailing list. My request is that if you want more information, go to storypowermarketing.com, click on free resources and pull down some of the resources that are there, including signing up for my mailing list if you're not already on the mailing list. Great place to start to power up your creative content and learn how to captivate prospects and inspire them to buy. So, small group here live. I hope you people on the recording realize the opportunity you're missing by not being here in the room with us live. But we have until top of the hour to answer questions. So bring them on.
I'll ask a question.
Yeah.
This is super interesting to us. We just probably 2 months ago started a LinkedIn ad campaign, and we're starting more a social media campaign. So I've, on my other monitor here, I've got my CTR and my CPM and my CPC and all this stuff. So
yep.
I was similarly, I'm like, impressions, that doesn't mean anything to me. Even the clicks really don't mean anything to me. But the leads that we got from it. So I guess one of my questions is, in the number 2, the cost per prospect tip or metric, I know this differs for everybody. Is there a formula for how you determine a good or worthwhile cost per prospect? Is it just, do you figure in, if I got that prospect, what package they would typically purchase, and if it was worth it to spend that amount of money to have one person because it's a big ticket purchase, for example.
Yeah, so Beth, I think it's a great question, and my first question for you is what do they have to do for you to label them a prospect? I
haven't thought about it till for this conversation. So what I would label a prospect, so I've gotten 2 leads through this LinkedIn campaign so far, and both of them required a follow-up email, and then they had to schedule a call, and that call happened, and there was follow-up email conversation afterwards, and just so I consider both of those prospects. One is definitely potentially someone who might come much later down the road. Another one I think could turn into something fairly soon. So I don't know if they hadn't scheduled a call and all they did was filled out the form on LinkedIn, that probably wouldn't have been a prospect. But since we got on that call, I consider them a prospect.
Yeah, and what I would say to that, Beth, is that in a lot of ways you can get caught up in the semantics of, okay, are they a prospect or are they not a prospect? But what you're really looking at are the specific activities, the events. So in this case, you're advertising to drive them to you in LinkedIn, and then you hope that they schedule a call.
Yep.
The measurement is how many, what was our cost to acquire a phone call?
Right.
That's easy to measure.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's also easy to measure, of those who took a phone call, how many became a customer, and therefore what was our cost. So you can effectively channel that campaign analysis into, we paid to advertise, those, those we advertised to got to a call, those who got to a call became a customer. What did that cost? Now, there are other ancillary costs, and this is what Dean was talking about before, that you might have done a webinar to nudge them. You might have who knows what, you might have sent them a football phone. But but those are, even if you keep it that simple, recognizing that maybe some of the dollars and some of the details fall off, you're still doing an analysis that gives you a meaningful picture of the efficacy. Yeah. And that you can compare to something next time. In my case, when I'm doing social media lead gen, I'm almost always hoping that they get from social media to my email list, and then I'm measuring, because as you know, Beth, I'm sending regular emails Monday through Friday. What I'm really measuring is, what is my cost to get people onto my email list? And then what percentage of people, for every 100 people I put on the email list, how much revenue is that generating this year? How many of them are becoming customers? Now, again, there are other factors that are probably being dismissed when I calculate that, but that gives me a good picture of, all right, well, is this social media activity working or not? How is this social media activity getting people to my email list? Yes or no? I'm doing more on social media than I used to as far as getting them straight to a phone call. Is this social media activity getting them straight to the phone? Then I'm measuring that cost. But there are all sorts, it gets to Dean's point about, measuring it by activity is really what it's all about. What are your thoughts, Dean?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the most important number to measure for a new campaign is sales conversations, getting them there, right? And then your conversion for sales conversation to revenue. But that's the number one thing, because all the other sort of like building your list, that's Tom's business. That may not be your business, right? And so your conversion rate for every 100 new email subscribers to a new client may be way lower than Tom's, because that's his model. So I would measure that campaign cost to conversation and then close first, and then everything else becomes lead nurturing, right? That's like marketing overhead stuff that over time you're going to convert some of those longer term, but it's much harder to attribute that down the road. So that I would measure that front end for you. And the other thing I would consider, and we didn't touch on this earlier, is the length of time it takes as well. That sort of sales cycle length is important too. Some campaigns will convert to a conversation much more quickly. It may be the same dollars and cents at the end, but if you can convert in 30 days versus 90 days, that's another key metric to think about. So the length of the sales cycle, or the length from touch point, initial contact to sales conversation, is critical as well, because time is dollars and time is attention. So that's one other component to think about.
Yeah, I work with a marketing coach named Dave D, who's particularly good at webinars and then doing prospect nurturing. His model is fundamentally webinars of various forms, one of his models, webinars of various forms to the email list, nurture them via email and convert them over time. To Dean's point, 2 years ago, he would have described the model as lead gen to webinar to sales call to conversion. And what he came to realize is that for various reasons, including webinar fatigue, the conversion rate straight from the webinar or a week out from the webinar was declining.
Mhm.
But what he actually was realizing is that if you began to measure it over a predictable sales cycle, where, you know, a 9-month cycle instead of a 2-week cycle, the value of those webinars was actually as great, if not greater,
Yeah.
than it used to be. That's a complex idea, but it's a really powerful idea. And what it also emphasizes is you can't treat this stuff as a one and done. I'm going to try it once, and when I don't convert customers, I'm going to punt it.
Yeah.
It's part of an ongoing cycle of activity that you have to develop and nurture.
Yeah.
Well, that's
And
what when I said I had those 2 leads, and the one I was just thinking this as you were talking, the one that I said I could envision something potentially down the road. I have no plan of how I'm going to stay. I mean, I'm going to
Right.
email them. I've got a plan for, I'm going to follow up with them, but I really don't have a plan for what that's going to look like. So how are they going to ever come back to me in a year if I'm not in top of mind when they need something?
Yeah.
well, all the more reason to do what I preach, and I say this not to be self-serving, that if you recognize that you're bringing people into your world who showed interest and raised their hand, you have to have a way to keep them engaged and keep them captivated week over week over week over week, because it might be 9 months from now that they say, I'm ready to buy. And that's the power of captivating content. That's why you and yeah, it's my model, email and so forth, but whether whether you're in a pure, you know, email to sales model or some other model, you've got to keep them engaged, and email needs to be in the mix for everyone.
Yep.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I'll ask a question of the group. How about that?
Good.
Who has increased their prices in the last 12 months? Show of hands. All right. So there's some low-hanging
It's a
fruit.
question for
everyone.
me because I haven't had prices to increase yet.
Okay.
Fair enough. All
right,
right,
Randy, we'll give
you're
you
off
that.
the you're off the hook.
Well, whatever you were charging to plan now.
Okay.
But in all seriousness, it is a tremendous opportunity. It really is. And I think from my experience of working with clients I do, the number one reason they don't raise their price is their own limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Oh, they're going to leave me. I don't do. No. That is the number one reason why people don't raise their price is their own concerns, right? How they would react, maybe or maybe not. So I would encourage you to put that on your list and then think about how you communicate that news to your clients.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's probably more important than the fact that you raised them, is how you communicate it.
Yep.
Right. So don't just send a blast email. Hey, recession, inflation, we're going to bump you. Don't do that. We see that. Don't do that. This is a personal conversation with your clients. I'm assuming we're not working with hundreds of thousands of people in our client bases with the folks around the table here. So take that to heart. Seriously. Yeah.
And I would even back it up a step. It's great advice, Dean. The thought process that I challenge you to all go through is, how can I plus my business? That's a Walt Disney term. I'm pulling again from Vance Morris, who used to work at Disney, and part of what he does with his business is, and what he teaches others to do, is Disneyfy the business. And the great thing we learn if we study Disney, particularly Walt Disney, is that you never rest where you are. Everything you do, even if it is top of the mountain great, you're trying to figure out a way to plus it, to make it better, to put some wow into it, to increase the value. Because when you do that, you remove yourself from the bottom tiles of the pyramid, and you're no longer commoditized. And this is particularly important right now when we're on the verge of a recession. When the recession takes hold, maybe it already has. When the recession takes hold, there will be a race to the bottom. All of your competitors are going to be frightened and terrified and lowering their prices, and all of the commoditized stuff that's out there is going to plummet, and people are going to be clawing for the crumbs.
Yep.
But when you plus the elements of your business, you position yourself where price increases are justified. People are willing to pay premiums for things that they perceive to be above and beyond. And every business can figure out ways to do that. And again, not to be self-serving, but one of the things that can put you above and beyond is in the ongoing communications that you have with your prospects and clients, your emails, your social posts, whatever the interactions are going to be. Make yourself stand out, plus yourself.
Yep.
And when you do that, people are willing to pay more to get a piece of you, to work with you. And it's so critical. Commoditization and the things that tear down businesses are only going to get worse as the economy continues to teeter. The people, if you look at every recession, most people suffer, handfuls flourish. Recessions are great opportunities for business people who are bold and know how to go out and get it. And I think, understanding your numbers, increasing your prices, not decreasing your prices, and not apologizing for that, delivering on the promise. All of those are things that can set you apart at a time when your competitors are going to be in retreat mode. So,
yep, 100% agree.
Yeah. What else? So you don't have a product to raise prices on. When is that product coming?
I'm working, I'm in a transition. I'm working on my plan.
Yeah.
And one of the things I want to do is build a platform for entrepreneurs and bringing them together with service providers, but it's going to take some time to get that up and running.
Right. I think I've heard you talk. I have heard you talk about that.
I think so. And yeah, but in some cases, I'm like for networking for people, for helping them find certain kinds of clients or whatever. Well, then I charge a percentage of their fee. So I don't really have to raise my prices, because when they raise theirs, then the percent goes up. Right.
If I recall, you have this vast experience working overseas, right? There was,
yes.
I remember now. And so as we talk about plussing and positioning and being able to charge premium prices, really lean into, you know, your backstory and all that experience you have, and what makes you different. You can, I think that people who are launching a product or a service for the first time often will come to the market thinking, well, I'm new to the game, I'm not experienced, I've got to start at this low rung price point. And I know from hearing you describe what you know and where you've been and what you've seen, that you have an immediate opportunity to say, I belong up here, and go for it. I think you can do it.
Thank you. I'll keep that in mind. For me, it's more a question of figuring out exactly what I'm selling, then I can price it. But I have all this, like you said, experience and knowledge, but I'm still working on packaging it.
Yeah.
How are you figuring that out? What are you doing to try and figure that out?
Good question. I've been doing a ton of networking for some months and meeting just all kinds of people and expanding my network exponentially. Initially, I thought I was looking for a job, but then people started saying, well, I think you can help me with this or that. And I thought, okay, I don't have to get a job, which I wasn't really looking forward to working for someone else like after years of being my own. I said, I can just craft my own business. And so this platform that I'm talking about is something I'm doing. I have a business partner that keeps trying to retire, and I won't let him. Because he has all this great business background, and he likes helping entrepreneurs and growing businesses and things like that. So I brought him a couple of things. So he's good at business plans. So I've brought my ideas to him about this platform, and I'm and asked him to come up with the business. We'll work on it together, but he'll do the initial plan. And so that's just thinking it through. What will work? What how can we make money? What's what's feasible without taking a million years to put it together to start getting it soon. And then other things are just people are coming to me and asking me if I can help them with various things. It turns out to be a lot of like business development or finding investors. People are always looking for money, but I can't spend too much time doing that because I'm getting more investor contacts, but you can do work and maybe make nothing, right? So there are some good projects I want to help them fund, but I don't want to spend too much of my time on that. The other thing is I'm now at a point I have to carve out time to think about time management and what I'm doing with my time, and what I will get a return on investment for. So I've connected with people who are various partners, or people want me to do various things. I have to figure out which projects I should take on. I can't take on so many that I get nothing done. I don't make any money. But I have been so busy networking, and I'm loving it, but that's not paying my bills. So, and my schedule keeps filling up. So I have to cut down on that and schedule in blocks of time to really just be focusing on my business. So I think that's one of the most important things I have to do is spend the time thinking about it.
Yeah. Product and offer design is obviously critical, and you have to get it figured out before you market it.
Yeah.
Right. But also I go to a lot of webinars like this to learn about things I'm going to need. Maybe I don't need to know them right now, but I will. And so it's really helpful to me to get all this. And then, later I'm sure I'll need to hire people to help me with things. And then I'll know who to hire because I've been to all these webinars and I know who can help me. So
yeah.
Good.
The more you talk about your ideal offer with who you believe is your ideal client, the more feedback you'll get. If you hang out at networking events with people that don't fit who you think will buy your offer eventually once you figured it out, you're going to get a skewed feedback, right? They're not going to give you the information that's usable. So as you think about your time and where you spend your time and who you're networking with, start to hone a profile of the people you want to be around that have the potential to buy this thing down the road, and float the idea by them. That literally, is this something you would be willing to spend money on, Joe?
Well, yeah, one of the things I have to do is figure where I'm going to meet people with more money to spend. I meet lots of like entrepreneurs and people and solo business people, but I need other people who have more money.
Start
Yep.
by writing down the profile the characteristics of those individuals. Start there. Then it's much easier to figure out where they hang out. But if you're not clear on who, you don't know where.
Yep, very true. So we are nearing the top of the hour. I think we have time for one more question. And oftentimes I stick around longer, but today I do have a hard stop at top of the hour. So any other questions or thoughts? I see a couple of people who are here, but they didn't do the video. So chime in if you have questions. I didn't see anything.
I'll let somebody else ask.
I didn't see anything in chat.
No, it's nothing.
I'm not hearing it, Beth. So if you have one more, bring it
Yeah.
on.
Go for it, Beth.
Well, you can tell me if this fits the topic or not, but the whole idea of raising prices is always something for us, because currently we develop online training solutions for construction companies, and it varies on what that engagement looks like and what their needs are. So we typically do an hourly rate. And then basically, to give an estimate, I have to package up how many hours it's going to take to do what you've asked to do. And I've always wanted to find a way to provide that as just a number without involving an hourly rate. But what I discover, and so sometimes I'm like, if I'm waiting for somebody to say, just keep doing the hourly rate, but nobody ever does. And I can't ever figure out how to transition, because what happens is I do the hourly rate, I package it and say, this is the scope of the project. Inevitably, it's always beyond what they said it was going to be. And now that I've given them an hourly rate, they're fine. They'll continue to pay more than what it was originally going to cost. But if I gave them what it ended up costing, and we can't really foresee that when we're first chatting, but if I gave them that final number when we started, I think they would have said no, even though ultimately they're willing to pay for it once we start working together and they see what goes into it. And I don't know if that's the nature of the audience I work in, and that's just how they work, so that's how I have to work, or if there's some nuance there to
why do you think they're going to
insight into?
So we do have to go, but the challenge I will give you, Beth, is why do you think they're going to say no? What is the average typical? So there are actually a couple of things at play. Number one, if you're consistently finding that there is project and scope creep, 20%, 10%, whatever the number may be, then you have to ask yourself, what am I doing wrong in the proposal process or in the process of defining scope of work? You could do a flat fee scope with a tight requirements definition and say, if we go over, we are going to charge at this rate. And you can even make the overage thing based on flat fee retainers. Every time we hit an overage, we're going to hit you with another $1,000 retainer or whatever it might be. So you never have to play the hourly game. But the first question is, why is it that you're getting hit with scope creep? And so there's a proposal writing question in there.
Yeah.
But then if for reasons that seem to really truly be beyond your control, you're getting 15%, 20% scope creep, then raise your prices 30% and see, 80% of your customers are going to say, okay. And the 20 who don't, 80-20 rule, you're going to end up ahead. You're going to end up with your best customers who love you and value you and are willing to pay the premium price. Dean, last word. I can be a minute late. Bring it on.
Oh, there's more than a minute's worth of stuff around pricing for sure. And Beth,
yeah.
I'm happy to chat offline if you want to just brainstorm. I work with a lot of construction clients too, so I'm happy to just brainstorm.
You two should connect for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can find him on LinkedIn. Thank you all. Thanks for being here. Those who are watching the recording, we appreciate you as well. And we are going to have another 5 and 25. Next one is in December, I think. Our current plan is to average 2 a month. November is a little funky with my travel schedule. So this is the one and only in November. We'll see you again in December. Thank you all. And Dean, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Good seeing everyone.
Thanks
Take
so
care.
much.
Bye.
Bye.